Hi everybody, I'm back, Steve List, and this is part 2 or our second video on urban agriculture. And as I mentioned in the first episode, we're going to do a question and answer. We are going to do the Ask Mr. List because I love audiences. I like to feed off them. As you know, if you've been to my lectures, I walk around, we interact, but questions kind of make it. It's very difficult for me to get a curriculum and try to read off it and give you guys that kind of knowledge. So we've gathered up a bunch of questions, and I have my intern Stefan way back in the audience. He's social distancing, and he's going to ask us a couple questions. So, Stefan?
With Mr. List, with how hot it's been, how much should we be watering?
That's a loaded question, Mr. Stefan, a very loaded question. And it differs from a lot of things. So we're going to start out with something that I repeat myself over and over and over, and now I'm calling it the 3 Ks. And what you need to know is, number one, you need to know your soil. You need to know what kind of soil you have. Do you have an extremely sandy soil or an extremely clay soil? Clay soils, you don't need to use as much water. Sand, as you would think, it just drains out. And right in the middle, you have yourself a silt soil. So you're looking for the best combo of a soil is a good sandy loam, but understanding that is going to help you with your watering. Number 2, you got to know the characteristics of your plants. And the DWP puts out this book, and it has a lot of really good information on watering, on plants, the characteristics of plants, natives, but also, instead of saying natives, I always like to say California friendly. So we go in here, we take a look at this, we understand the plants and the characteristics, the exposure, how much sun they need, how much water they need, and understanding that's going to help you on your water. And the 3rd K is knowing your sprinkler system. Whether you have a bubbler system or a pop-up overhead watering system, all those things, understanding how much water do those sprinklers put out and the volume and how much those plants need and the soil, those are your 3 Ks, and that's going to tell you pretty much what you're looking for as far as watering. Now that being said, you've got a lot of little baby plants here. And for instance, we have a tomato plant. Brand new tomato plant. And we planted these back here a month ago. All right, in the beginning, when you plant a plant, you want to keep their little feet, I call them little feet, little roots damp for the first week. And then you want to pull way back. And this also is very crucial that you have a good soil in there. A lot of soil amendments. Here up at Lopez, we have a premium soil amendment that you mix 50-50 with your soil, and that will help hold the moisture in. So after a week, you're going to cut way back on the water, let the plant stress so it'll get a deeper root system. This will give you more flowers, it'll give you more tomatoes, and the plant will be a lot happier. So early on, keep things damp, but pull them back. Another example is back here on our tomatoes. We're going to probably go, after we water maybe in a few more days, we're going to wait about 3 weeks, even in this hot weather. So when you see the plant wilting in the afternoon, be careful. The plant will play a little trick on you. It'll wilt, but wait till the morning to see if it really is wilting. What it'll do is it'll kickstart overnight and it'll rejuvenate. So no water, a little bit of water in the beginning. Now when you come to flowers, like these impatiens, we're going to talk a little bit about shade and sun. The impatiens, they're going to stay a little more damp. They require shade, they're going to need a little bit more water. So understanding the plant, the soil, and the sprinklers should be a great way for you to understand how much to water. And I'd like to get another question from our audience. We have any questions?
How should I fertilize the garden?
Oh my gosh, that's loaded question number 2. All right. We really like to talk mostly about organic fertilizers, and that's what we're going to stick with. So in order for a good organic fertilizer to work properly, you need a living soil. And living soil, what I mean is something that's loaded with bacteria and microorganisms, and the best way to get to that is by composting. So if you're putting your compost into the soil and you're adding a good soil amendment, and I recommend using the Top Grow because, hey, it's free and it's not bad. It really works good. We use it quite a bit in all of our projects, and as you can see, our tomatoes back here, they're just thriving because we do this. So that being said, a good organic fertilizer is very important. fish emulsion. There's several companies that make different kinds of organic fertilizers. That would be up to your nursery person at whatever nursery you decide to go to. I like to feed with a liquid organic every time I water, and because I don't water very much, what we do is we mix up the organic liquid into a container and we foliar feed and root feed. So I'm going to pour it all over the tops of my plants. It's going to drench down into the soil, so the roots are going to absorb it as well as the foliage. Be careful about doing it in the middle of the day, because number one, it could burn with the heat. Water, fertilizer, anything like that on the leaf during the day could burn. Another thing you don't want to do is when you have fruit and vegetables growing, like this beautiful tomato, if you're foliar feeding and you pour that liquid fertilizer all over and it gets on these tomatoes and you decide to eat one, it might not taste very good. So be very careful about that. Let's see, do we have any more questions in the audience?
Alright, I got 3 questions. Can I plant lettuce in the summer? Can I plant broccoli right now? And what should we plant right now?
Okay, that's some great questions, and what I'm suggesting now is you should be removing all of your winter plants, your lettuce, your broccoli, your cabbage. Well, cabbage might be coming to a head right now, so you might want to wait a little bit. But can you plant lettuce in the summer? No, it'll just burn up. Lettuce right now will be shooting up its seeds, and we call that bolting. That's pretty much the plant's dying. It's the end of its annual season. It's going to seed. The seed will sit there and it can come back next year. So my suggestion is you should remove all that so you can plant your summer vegetables. Broccoli, same thing. You plant broccoli, lettuce, what else do you have? Cauliflower, spinach. Those should be planted in late October, beginning of November. You should just be finishing up your harvesting. What should you plant right now? Tomatoes. You know, I'm the tomato jester, so that's the kind of what I like to plant. Peppers, all your basils, all your herbs. You have all your squashes, you got melons, you have watermelon, cantaloupe. All these things could be planted now. Corn, I got some seed packets over here. Carrots, your root crops could be planted every day, you know, all year long. So radishes, turnips, beets, carrots can be planted year-round. Southern California soil is warm. They'll grow a little slower when it's cooler, but you could still plant year-round. What else can we plant now? You can plant your herbs, cucumbers, corn, peppers, tomatoes. Those are all your summer crops to be planted right now. So if you haven't gotten them in by now, you better hurry up, because we're getting into the heat right now. As you can see in our background, our Lopez Canyon tomatoes, they've been in for over a month and they're going crazy. We should have a good crop of tomatoes end of June, beginning of July. I'm going to cross my fingers that we have a tomato tasting. Hopefully we do it outdoors with everybody, but probably not. And when we do it, we'll do a virtual tomato tasting. Perhaps we could do it in all 3 locations. That might be something that we could talk to the bosses about. So does that answer your question, my friend?
Yeah, I got a couple more.
Okay.
Are there any shade veggies?
Shade veggies, not too many. Most of your vegetables need full sun. Some of your herbs will take shade. Some of your basils, your Genovese will take the shade, but the problem is the plant will grow really good in the shade, but you won't get any produce. It's same with fruit trees. Fruit trees need all day sun in order to get a product out of it. To answer your question, generally, no. Shade veggies, there's not too much you can do.
Alright, and then one more. For a first timer, what should they plant?
Plant everything. That's my thing. Plant everything and plant a whole bunch of it, because believe me, you're going to learn more by doing that for next year. So in other words, no. You want to plant a little of this and a little of that. Don't overdo it. We're all like little kids in a candy store. Me, I'm still doing it after all these years, but I'll never forget my very, very first vegetable garden I planted, and I did that. I planted everything. And you know what I ended up with? A mess. So go small, plant a little bit, learn by it, take notes. I always tell you guys, take notes. Take monthly notes on your garden so next year you'll know what's going on. Also, people talk about companion planting, square foot gardens, what plants go with this, what plants shouldn't you plant. My feeling is, what I like to do is I like to separate. I like my tomatoes in one area, I like my peppers in another, I like my my cucumbers and zucchinis in another. Hi, buddy, and we're going to continue our Q&A. Young lady in the back, you have your hand up.
Hi, Mr. List. So I had a question. What's the difference between raised bed, container gardening, or direct sowed? And for someone like me who's just getting started, what would be the best thing to start with?
Well, it kind of has to do with your location and what your availability is. And let me explain to you. Let's start with raised beds versus directly in the soil. Number one, the product you're going to get at the end is going to be exactly the same. The reason why you want to go with a raised bed is if you got really, really horrible soil, you can develop your own soil. Also aesthetics, raised beds look good. Also maneuverability, being able to walk around and get to your garden is why you would want a raised bed. As far as in the soil, as long as you prepare the soil really good, you're going to get the same product. Another way to go is containers. Now, I'm big on growing tomatoes in big pots, and the smallest pot that I recommend is a 35-gallon container, so you can see how big. Rule of thumb for a tomato plant, it needs 2 feet down, 2 feet across in order to grow. The roots are going to go 2 feet and it's going to go 2 feet across. Another thing that somebody talked to me about prior to this lecture is those felt pots. I really, really like those felt pots, and the reason I like them is because drainage. The water gets out of there quick, but the problem with you got to be very careful is they will dry out a little bit faster than a regular pot. So answer to your question, you really got to say, okay, look, I don't have much area. I need to put a raised bed on concrete. Or I have a whole bunch of land, then you don't need the raised beds. Or you want to just legitimize and put different pots all over the place. Just make sure you put the proper size. Peppers, you don't need that big of a pot. A 15-gallon is perfect. Tomatoes, definitely, please get a large container for that. The other thing is making sure that you have proper soil. Soil prep, make sure you get a lot of compost, a lot of amendments. Maybe we go back to getting your living soil. This will make your organic fertilizers work properly. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I think we got another question in the far back. Mr. Strong.
How do you take care of tomato plants?
Oh my goodness, how do you take care of tomato plants? Well, I'm going to go with after you plant your tomato, a lot of people think that they should pull off the first flowers. Just a myth. Not a big deal. Generally, a tomato plant, the first group of flowers will just fall off, so you don't have to worry about that. Other people say, oh, you have to trim your tomato, you need to do this. No, I don't agree with that at all. A tomato plant is a weed. The less you do, the better it is. Let it stress, don't water. Tomatoes are also heavy fertilizers. Whether you go with an organic or a synthetic, they love fertilizers. No water, no trimming. Make sure that you're indeterminate, that's the ones that are on stakes. Make sure that they're really secure and you have a good support system, and you'll be fine. But again, tomato plant is a weed. Hey everybody, we're going to conclude this series of videos at my tomatoes, or our tomatoes, their community project. But I want to show you that we stake these up with these kind of flimsy tomato cages. And I'm afraid that we're going to have to put some stakes to support this. These guys are going to get heavy with foliage, but also they'll be heavy with tomatoes. So we're going to do that probably in a week or so. The other thing is we put these cages on here, as you can see. Whoa. And they're very easy to take off and on. There you go. And the reason I do this is because there's a lot of deer up here, there's a lot of squirrels, there's a lot of rabbits, and this will protect it. So this is a very easy way to protect your all your vegetables. And if you want to come up here at Lopez, it's open to everybody. Come up, get some free soil amendments, some free mulch. Take a look at our garden. We have 4 varieties of the Japanese hybrid tomatoes, which I was very fond of last year, so we're redoing it. I also went ahead and planted our 2 favorites from last year, Early Girl and Sun Gold Cherries. So let's think about what we want to do for next month. If you have any comments, you could go ahead and put it on the comment part of this. This is on LA Sanitation's YouTube channel. You could also text me, email me, go on my social media. I'm under Ask Mr. List or Steve S. List. I take questions. I usually answer them right away. And we're out here to give you free knowledge and great advice. And last but not least, everybody please do your social distancing. Be safe. We'll get through this together, I promise. Get out and garden. That's what we want to do. Thank you.